Hello and welcome everyone to Rothy Radio, aka Rothy Revolution. I am your host, Rothy. And with me today is my friend Kyle. And this is episode 1 of Rothy Radio. Happy to have you with me. For those who have been with me in my other podcasts, I'm glad to be back. It's good to be back. And I know a lot of you have been waiting for this for a while. I am sorry to have kept you waiting. I knew that it had to be the right time and the right reason, and this is absolutely the right time, and for many reasons. But of course, one of those, and the main one, today is the 14th, the 14th of September, 2025. And we're 4 days past, I think, what we can all agree would be the turning point, for the lack of better term, um, within this world. So, and of course, that was the assassination of Charlie Kirk, who is, just an outspoken and very impactful conservative activist and leader, and in my opinion, just an incredible person that we will never have another Charlie Kirk in our lifetime. I probably ever again in the history of human beings, just like many others, or a few others, I guess, out there. He was one of a kind. And so I, of course, like everybody else in the world, have just been rocked by this. And I don't care what side of political spectrum or the religious spectrum that you find yourself on, you cannot be impacted. Even those that are, the demons out there that are, cheering for it, it impacted you too. So and I would like to say, in my lifetime, in my 47 years, I'm sure you can agree with me, Kyle, that like never have I seen such an unprecedented event with not only how Charlie was assassinated and how that was broadcast to us, but also the impact, just the wave of humanity that's taken over humanity and the earth. Just the wave of compassion. I know that there's a ton of negativity out there, and a ton of tension that's building in the world, and especially in America. But what other person in our lifetime, in our particular lifetime, has there ever been? I mean, if you look at what has happened since his passing, 39,000 new chapters of Turning Point have opened up just in the past 4 days. Having his body flown back by the vice president on Air Force Two, to his body being kept in the rotunda, to millions of people marching in the UK for him, concerts, moments of silence at concerts, the baseball games, football games. Nobody, it's like he was a president. It's like he was a president that was assassinated. And I I followed him for many years. He got me through the past 3 election cycles, but even I am in awe of the impact that this man made on us. And so I think it's only fair that we absolutely start out this episode talking a little bit, and actually a lot about Charlie Kirk and what has happened. So with further ado, and forgive me for being so rude, I'm going to introduce you again, Kyle, to get a lot of that out. There's just so much to say about it. But yeah, what are some of your thoughts? I know that you've got probably a lot on your mind with regards to that as well.
I do. And Rothy, thank you for having me on. This was a last minute thing, and I appreciate you just bringing me on to last minute. It's an honor to be here, especially on your first episode. So I will try not to disappoint your listeners.
No, thank you for trying.
But yeah, Charlie, I mean, from a personal standpoint, I have some indirect connections with him. I'm a YouTuber. I have some content that I put out there for the past 6 or 7 years, and about 5 years ago, we went to Turning Point chapter with their big event in Tampa, Florida, the student outreach down there. And I was a VIP. I had a whole booth set up and all that stuff. And I was with also, not only I'm with the conservative take. That's what I have. But I was also with Red Liberty Media as well as an affiliate for them. And as part of that entourage, they had connections with Charlie. One of our members was actually working the cameras for him. And I didn't actually meet him, but I did make eye contact with him one time. I do remember that. And he's just phenomenal. I mean, you see him on TV and podcasts, whatever, but to see him in real life, behind the scenes, when the camera's not running, he was the fastest typing person I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it was like, I don't know if the camera can hear that or not, but it's like, I mean, it's like, and while he's typing, he's actually directing orders from people to do, oh, bring the lighting over here, and he's doing these things. He's multitasking, and he's constantly doing stuff. When the camera rolls, bam, he's on. It was just a sight to behold. They received the front end. I was watching the back end. He was just mesmerizing. But you're right. I'm not going to say anything more what you said, because what you said was absolutely perfect. We're not going to have another Charlie Kirk. So that's the first thing I want to do, echo that. And the second thing is, in my lifetime, Princess Diana, I would say, but I think with her, she was royalty. Charlie was just a 31-year-old entrepreneur, historian, Christian. And if I think about Charlie so much, I really get really, really sad, because he had so much in him. He had historical context. He had biblical worldview. He knew the gospel. He preached the gospel. He could debate, and he was just smart on his feet. He was quirky and kind and compassionate and all these things, but he was firm on his convictions. And that's the kind of guy I think I want to be like. I imagine, of course, we want to emulate Christ, but I mean, I can't picture. I would love to be like someone like a Charlie Kirk, on my way to becoming Christ-like. I think he was way closer to me than Christ than I am, and his personality and the way he actually engaged people without really getting upset too much and kind of like laughing it off, whatever, was a skill set. And so I'll throw it back to you real quick, but I do think one thing that he reminds me of, and I think what could come out of this, because I kind of look at things historically, is a person by the name of Nathan Hale. He was a patriot in the Revolutionary War prior to. He was going to be a spy for George Washington, but he wasn't a very good spy. He was too tall. He talked too much, whatever. And he ended up getting captured and ended up getting martyred. And one of the things he was attributed to saying was, I regret that I have but one life to give to my country. And that particular moment launched the Revolutionary War and launched the United States of America and launched to where we are today. So I am praying to God that when Charlie Kirk said in prior interviews, what do you want to become out of this? He would say, I want God to use me. And I pray that God is using this tragic event to do a similar thing with Nathan Hale and other martyrs of our time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a wonderful comparison. And he absolutely was a martyr. You hit the nail on the head with that. And it's just, it's incredible to me, the impact that he's made with this. We will not have another one, like you said before. And one of the things that I, too, really just admired so much about him, as you've kind of seen with me online, I very much love the debate. I love the art of the debate. And I am nowhere near as proficient as he was at it. And I guess my more prideful, egotistical side of myself would say that, yeah, I'm pretty good at debating, but I'm nothing compared to where he was at. I debate, I get emotional. Yes, I'm articulate. Yes, I'm intelligent. Yes, I have a ton of facts from which to draw from. And I understand that at the end of the day, slander becomes the tool of the loser once the debate has been lost. And I keep that in my mind as a part of my arsenal, ready to launch to anybody who begins the Marxist Alinskyite tactic of just, hurling insults because they have no facts left in their armory, right? And that's one of the things that I think was the foundation of Charlie's success and his ability to debate so well with people. And it didn't matter who you are, and it didn't matter how you came at him. He understood the fundamental principle behind that. He understood the the tactics that the leftists use, that the Alinskyites use, and that reference you're probably familiar is from Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, which is the playbook that leftists and Marxists go by. It's Hillary Clinton, that was one of her role models. Obama went by that playbook. That's what they do. That's how they work. They have no facts. You have to understand that evil, and we have to call it what it is at this point in time. The left is evil. It doesn't mean that every Democrat is evil. There's a lot of the moderates coming over to the right now. And yeah, there's some bad people on the right too. We got to talk about that too. We got to acknowledge truth, right? But the fact is that that's evil. And evil does not come with truth. Evil does not represent truth. Evil uses deception. Evil uses attacks. Evil uses weapons, right? So we have to understand the art of war, if you will. When it comes to this, when it comes to the art of debating, that they are not playing fair, nor do they play fair in any regard, in any sort of a conflict or debate or what have you. They're never going to play fair. So I think that Charlie really understood that fundamentally, and then he incorporated not only this just treasure trove of information that he accumulated, and you could just tell that he just loved to learn, and he just filled his brain and his, he filled himself with information that was important, that he knew that would come in handy as a part of his arsenal for truth. And when you're coming from that perspective, when you're pulling from the armory of truth, you don't have to worry about becoming emotional. You don't have to worry about the insults that they hurl at you. You know that you have facts upon facts upon facts upon facts in your arsenal. And even if you're not that informed, even if you're just starting this out, but you know that you want to be on the side of righteousness. One of the things that you can, if you have this understanding fundamentally in your pocket, you can go forth and be righteous and win that debate by understanding that slander becomes the tool of the loser once the debate has been lost. And I would encourage all of my listeners to, the Bible says that we are to be wise as serpents and gentle as doves, right? Go learn those, go get the rules for radicals. Go get that stuff. Learn their tactics. Learn what they're using against us so that you can call it out and you can shine a light on it. That's all darkness needs, is to have a light shined on it, and it has to disperse. And so I think that was one of the keys to Charlie's amazing success. It was obviously just a winning formula of a charismatic personality, a loving heart, being founded in his Christian beliefs, and but also understanding how they worked, how to never become emotional from that, and how to just keep his armory full of facts and truth. Because at the end of the day, and I posted this today, truth is eternal. Truth, you can't kill truth. Truth will never die. And in that way, Charlie lives on and will forever, because he was the truth.
Absolutely. Well said. I'll piggyback on that a little bit, and some advice to people who may be in the area of debating. One thing Charlie did was, and this is different for all of us, but we can all follow this same model. And I've been involved in politics for a long time and running campaigns, that sort of thing as well. But one thing that we tell politicians is to stay in your political box. And that's basically your area of expertise. Don't go outside of it. If you get pushed out of it, you comment on it and you pivot back to your box. Charlie had a huge box, and to your point, he studied, he learned, and so he could talk on a broader subject. But if you watch even that debate and he did in the UK or wherever, if someone brings up some information that he's not familiar with, he'll say, "I'm not familiar with that. I'll look into that." And he goes back, he pivots back into where he is known. And I think for us, We need to, whatever that is, whether it be the Civil War, whether it be cooking, baking, or politics like we have today. I think the biblical framework is the best one because, to your point, truth, you can't go wrong if you stick in their biblical worldview framework. And no matter what, you say, well, I don't know, but the Bible says this. I don't know. It's a good point there, but I don't know. I'll check on that. But the Bible says this, and then you'll never lose a debate that way. You may tie or you may be whatever, but you'll never lose because you have it, and you're not putting yourself down a road that's going to put you in trouble. Another thing you said, I'll kick it back to you after this, is you mentioned about their tactics, rules for radical Solinsky, and all that. Perfect. So one thing that I got a chance to take part in was go see Dr. Jason Lyle, who's an astrophysicist, a creationist. He's a biophysicist. He's a super duper guy. I went to go see him in West Virginia, but he has several books and some videos. I'll give you the link to Rothy about logical fallacies, and he breaks down all the different fallacies that people talk about, straw man and all that sort of thing as well. That those tactics that I'm sure you'll see in that Solinsky book, they'll try and use to get us to come off of a subject, and they'll inflate something, they'll conflate something, they'll bring up an argument that you should make up, and be able to spot these logical fallacies is how we can actually use that in combination to our political box to be very effective, even if we don't have much experience at this stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's such a great point. Yeah. There's art to this. It's not just, most people just go based upon arguing and who can clap back the quickest and the funniest sometimes, and give the worst insult. I tell them, when leftists come with those insults, I just make that quote: slander becomes a tool of the loser once the debate has been lost. So by all means, continue your lame attempts at insulting me, because you're just proving to myself and everybody else have zero facts in your armory. So, but yeah, and I'm sure we could go for days digging into and really dissecting the genius that was Charlie, and just the amazing, unique superpower that he was when it came to intellectual debate. Hence, and obviously that was the foundation of Turning Point, and how it became such a success, because I just, one of the things that I think about Colin is I'm like, there's all these new chapters out there, and thank God for that. Thank God for the continuation of Turning Point and all of that. But I do have a question, and I'm just going to be forthright and vulnerable with this, I guess, to some degree. But how do we go on without him? You know what I mean? And I know that we will, and I know that everything is, but if we're considering the fact that there is not, and everybody's talking about Ben Shapiro coming in, and I'm like, well, first of all, what are your thoughts on that? Do you care to speak on that? I know I do, but do you care to? I guess not. You there? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Disconnected. Are you there?
Did I lose you?
Okay. Yeah, for a second.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, as I was saying, with regards to, how do we foresee the future with Turning Point and what that's going to look like, especially considering the possibility, or I guess I don't know if it's been decided, of Ben Shapiro heading that up. Do you have any thoughts on that? And would you like to speak on that?
I'm not a fan of Ben Shapiro. I mean, I think he's fine, but not to lead up Turning Point. I mean, I saw your post, by the way, so I 100% agree with that. I don't think it fits the worldview. Turning Point it's anchored in Christendom, and there's a difference. He's. I mean, I'm not trying to diss on Ben, but he's not from that space. I mean, he doesn't believe what Christians believe. And that's going to play into the growth of that company, to make sure it stays within the vision of what he created.
Yeah.
Now I'll leave it. I don't want to get too. I don't want to just trash Ben. I appreciate his effort. I mean, his sentiment in trying to carry this on, but there's a downside to that. And I think your post nailed it.
Yeah. I have tremendous concern with that. I myself, I'm part Jewish, in blood. That's my lineage. I'm part Jewish. I'm part Mexican and have some other stuff in me. And I have tremendous history, with the Jewish side of my family, going back to the Holocaust. And we're from Odessa, Russia. We have family in Israel as I speak. My grandfather's brother lives there with his wife and some other family. So um, I don't want to say I don't have any skin in this game, because I absolutely do. I have blood, family that is over there, that is Jewish. But I, as a Christian woman, as an American first patriot, cannot, in good conscience, back Ben Shapiro, who was an Israel first person. He lives in America. He's
Yeah.
American, but he is absolutely an Israel loyalist. And regardless of what you feel about Israel, how you feel about it, or not, if we are in America first, if that is the political side of the spectrum that you lean on, if that is your understanding and your position overall, just as an American citizen, if that is your position as a Christian, or
Yeah.
just a member of Turning Point, you have to understand that it's almost the antithesis, in a way, of the right person to lead this. I really would like to see, Tyler and Jack Posobiec,
Yeah.
and the people that were a part of the foundation of Turning Point continue to carry its torch. Obviously, the implementation of Erica, and her, I think that she will be an incredible person to continue to carry Charlie. Who better to continue to carry the heart of Charlie into Turning Point going forward? But to, especially with all of the speculation out there as to who really did this to Charlie,
Yep.
and all of the conspiracy theories going around about that. And I don't want to necessarily delve too much into that in this first episode. I'm sure we will in other episodes. I have zero problem going full deep into things like that. But I do want to keep it kind of more surface level for this. But with all of that being considered, why would we even take that chance? There are so many things that I question with regards to the narrative of what we are being given and what we are being shown about what happened to him. And I can't help that. I have zero poker face. Anybody who knows me knows I am honest to a fault. Ask me to lie and I'm going to lose that game, because I can't. It's not in me. I'm just too real of a person. I have never played the game. I don't want to learn how to play the game. I just want to be me and go forth with the best, most righteous intentions that I have, and just win. That's, in every direction, that in everything that I do, in every endeavor, that's just how I want to go forward. I have no game about me. So with that said, I don't understand how we're going to take this forward
We're at a
with
crossroads for
leadership
sure.
like that. Yeah.
We're at a crossroads for sure. And and I don't want to trivialize this with Apple Computer, but I'm familiar with them. When Apple Computer was founded by Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs back in the late 70s, early 80s. And at one point in time, they became corporate, and then Steve Jobs was the visionary, and they ended up firing him for various reasons. He was terrorizing, the people, because he wanted quality. He had a vision for the company. He wanted the world in your pocket, which is basically the cell phone before it was even a thought of. He thought of that way back. They fired him. Apple went down because they didn't have a vision. They brought him back, and then of course, then he went into the Macintosh and iPhone and iPod and everything else, and then he passed away. And I think that's what we are at a crossroads where if they don't handle this right, I think then we'll have an issue. Conceivably, what I could see happening is Erica being the pulse, the legacy, and she could be in the front office as well because she's got the skills. but definitely in the back office and make sure that the books are right and everything's doing well. And then doing it by Charlie Kirk by committee, bringing in Jack and bringing in several other people and have them rotate through and then, let the best rise to the top and move forward in that direction. And again, keep the vision of Turning Point and how it was made to be created. I believe that it's an America first uh, um, outlet, right? I mean, like you said, it's not an Israel first outlet. And Ben Shapiro should be nowhere near it in that capacity in terms of leadership. None. I saw what he was done with Daily Wire, and we can talk off subject on that. That's kind of sketchy as well. So I don't want to see Turning
Yeah.
Point turn to that. And one thing about Charlie, I don't know how you feel about Nick Fuentes, whatever, but early on, Nick Fuentes wanted to be part of Turning Point, and Charlie was like, no. From the very beginning, he said, "You don't fit our vision," and he cut him off immediately. And since then, Nick Fuentes has been hating Charlie Kirk ever since.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but the point I'm trying to make is not trying to dish on Ben or anyone else for that matter, even Nick. The point is that Charlie had a vision, and that vision needs to be carried out. And
Yes.
that's it. And I think that's one way of doing it. Charlie Kirk by committee and making sure that his wife Erica is there in the back, still trying to push the agenda and trying to make sure everything's there because she knew him better than anybody. And keep it biblically based. I mean, they were unapologetic about sharing the gospel. And if you go to one of those Turning Point events, they're nuts. I mean, in a good way. Incredible. So many young people and just just conservatism across the board. It's fun, and the young people love Charlie. And I'll be remiss if I don't bring this up, Rothy, if you bear with me 1 second here.
Yeah, go ahead.
And you mentioned about the college people, kids, and it reminded me to talk about this because young kids typically, I hate to say it this way, and this is me too when I was this age, young and dumb. That's me. Heck, in some ways, I'm still young and dumb. But they're very influential. They can be manipulated through emotions and this sort of thing. And that's how the Marxists get them. They get them when they're young, they marry them, and then they convert them into these revolutionaries. They go away from this classical style of education that we learned from Thomas Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Jefferson, Jay, all those guys coming up, where we're supposed to shun off the things that we don't need to be with and embrace the things we should like art and poetry and science and literature and love, and suppress our bad natures because they're not good for us. But what ended up happening was that liberalism, that classical liberalism, which was a classical education, converted, especially when the Department of Education came into existence under Jimmy Carter. It reverted to taking young kids and turning them into revolutionaries, into activists. And that's where we have now, which is why getting rid of the Department of Education is so important. And so what Charlie did was, to wrap it up here, is he wanted to catch them before the Marxist gift got them. And so it gave them this classical style of education that you can be, you can have a wonderful life. You can get married. You can have kids. You can be prosperous. You can change the world, because every kid wants to change the world. Every kid growing up wants to be a doctor, a lawyer. He wants to do something on a grand stage. It's only until you get to your, my age, you realize, well, I guess that's not going to happen. And you go down. But Charlie wanted to catch them.
I'm going to start a
early
podcast.
Stage. I'm sorry?
I said, yeah, I'm going to start a podcast at our age.
No, I'm being facetious here. It's never too old. I'm just saying, I'm just being funny because,
For sure.
But that's what Charlie was about, right? Catch them when they're young and get them inspired, and then we'll out baby them.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point. And I've seen, some comments of some naysayers, in the comments saying, oh, Charlie debated 18 to 19-year-olds and blah, 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 like trying to downplay that. And I'm like, number one, you do understand that he started this whole thing around that same age, right? You do understand that. B, number two, that is still the window that you want to, that's kind of the last time that you're really going to be able to impact some of those minds. You know what I mean? Most of them are not going to be malleable enough, especially when we're going to indoctrination camps, aka colleges, universities. That's all they are. And, trade schools, that's, well, now with, I hate to say it, I'm not excited about the AI revolution or era, but that's what's coming. And we need to, in some ways, either prepare to how to work with it or how to fight it or go off grid. One of the three. Like, and I'm trying to decide
Yep.
myself, like,
Right.
what is it that we need to get ready for? Is this going to be like legit? And is my new name Sarah Connor? Is that what this is? Do we need to just go off grid and build a bunker underground? Like, I have no clue. And I'm so, especially, of course, with the happenings of this past week, um, and a lot of the rumors online about spiritual stuff, prophecy, the red heifer, the rapture, all of that, tribulation. There's so much that even if you're not a worldly person, even if you're just a Christian, and I don't want to say just a Christian because you're amazing, if you're a Christian. Um, but I'm saying if you're just a part of that sector with us of believers, there's just so much going on right now. There's still so much going on. And it's like everything I feel like right now, and I was just telling my roommate this, I feel like we are living in a movie. I really feel like we're living in a movie right now. And I am one that absolutely believes that we exist within a simulation. I understand it from a spiritual perspective as a numerologist, which numerology absolutely decodes God's creation, because God speaks in code through in the Bible, like speaks in code. And we are absolutely coded and created. And I'm not going to go into the rabbit hole that is that. We can do that another time. But we absolutely live in a simulation. And so, what is playing out for us right now? How prophecy plays into that? How the current happenings, how everything is, are we creating that? Because I do understand that we do manifest our reality in that regard. And is this if this is this a pre-prophesied, are we creating this prophecy because we understand that to be the prophecy that's supposed to happen? Like,
Yeah.
there's
Is
just
it
so
life?
much in my mind.
Is life imitating art?
Yeah.
Art imitating life? Are you saying?
Right. Like, are we creating it because we believe that that's what's supposed to happen because that's what the Bible says? You know
Okay.
what I mean? There's a lot, even as a believer, as a Christian, I question a lot about the Bible, just the translations of it. I read a lot of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Gnostic Gospels. I read, the Book of Enoch, the stuff that was not kept in the canon, because why was it taken out? 367 AD, Egyptian Archbishop Athanasius just decides, one statesman, decides to deem the Gnostic Gospels as heresy. Meanwhile, that was what the church followed mostly at the time. So why is that? We have to question everything at the end of the day, and I think that I don't want to say Jesus said, seek and ye shall find. And I think that a lot of that goes into, I think that God ultimately knew that man would get his little dirty, filthy hands into, excuse my text there, into the good book and want to change it for his purpose and for his control and all of that. And I think that it behooves us to kind of keep that in mind and read the Bible with an understanding of that, as well as with a ton of discernment and prayer for for leadership and understanding from the Holy Spirit. That's the best way that I can go forward with it, because I'm not one of those full on, King James version, like, no, there's so much more. God is so much more. Jesus is so much more than what they taught him. He taught us that he was. There's so much missing from his life, when he went and traveled the world, and there's so much more that we weren't told about, that we weren't allowed to know. And because of my work in numerology and the more spiritual side of the things that I've done, um, I have an understanding that a lot of the things that the church condemns or maybe calls woo woo or witchcraft whatever, what have you. Um, God created crystals. The crystals were, they're on the ephod's breastplate. The kingdom will have the walls are crystals. I could go on. I could go on about the more spiritual and mystical things in the Bible that the church tends to deem as bad. So, um, sorry to go off on that tangent, but it just makes me really like question everything. And this is where I am, as a believer in Jesus, as a believer in Yeshua. Do I fully believe that the rapture is going to happen like now? This is where I'm at, Kyle. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? This
Oh
is where
yeah.
I'm at.
Yeah. I'm with you 100%. And I think a lot of Christians and we because I was involved in prophecy for a while back in the 90s. I was doing a projects website before the internet was just coming up, and I go back and forth between a dispensational aspect where basically the left behind model versus a post trib, essentially meaning that once more of a reformed theological standpoint, such that once the rapture happens, that's it. We go up, and in the world it's white throne judgment, and that's it. So yeah, I mean, in a lot of things, I just don't know. I mean, John MacArthur, who we recently passed, believed more than like Left Behind dispensational, which is counter to his belief as a reformer, a reform theologian, as Calvinism toward a thing. And so it's a rabbit trail. Um, and I think to me, really is we're saved and we're trying to learn and become more like Christ through the Holy Spirit. I think it's the journey to that truth. It will be
Yeah,
revealed once we get sanctified, in heaven. I think part of it is just us being faithful in doing, seeking and learning. And whether you believe the Gnostic Gospels are valid or not, I personally don't think that I think they're valid Gospels, but I don't think they're inspired. So, and there's reasons for that. And I can go into that if I like to, but I don't think that's majoring a lot of it in the minors. I think one thing that the early church believed in was the early tenets of like Christ lived, Christ died, Christ rose again, he's coming back. And of course, and those creeds where they would say he appeared before 5,000 and so on, so on, so on. Those are creeds that are common amongst all of us that bind the Christian faith. Whether or not we have baptism submersion or baptism sprinkled, I think that's majoring in the minors as much. But and so that's my take there. In terms of like numerology, absolutely. If you look at the tabernacle in the Old Testament, that model is you could spend your entire lifetime just studying the tabernacle and the symbolism in that. You mentioned the red heifer and all of that. And so everything in there pointed to the gospel at some point. The Ark of the Covenant is a perfect example of that. And in terms of numerology as well, I mean, I used to follow a guy named Grant Jeffries. He's passed away. He's a Christian, and he talked about the various codes in the Bible that that you can't, if you take the original Hebrew text or the Aramaic or the Greek and you number it, you can actually it actually has prophetic meaning in it, and it's very very dogmatic, and you can check that out for yourself as a rabbit trail. And lastly, I would say in terms of how we got the Bible is another good video from Dr. Jason Lyle about how that came out in terms of the multiple families of Bibles of the original text that we don't all have all of them for, but they cross-check each other. And as they were being translated, there were errors, minor errors, like a T versus a P, or maybe a misspelling. That misspelling isn't here, but across all the other things they are there, which means that those were right and that one was wrong. And so it's almost
right,
like a God's way of actually checking and correcting and being able to verify His word through the various families of these translations as they're being written down in different ways. Um, it's like I said, Rothy, it is deep, and I don't have the answers to it. I'm still trying to go through this myself, and
yeah,
personally, I just want to read the Bible and then try to hear what the Holy Spirit's telling me and do what He
yeah,
says. And I think each person
yeah.
is different on that journey.
Yeah, I agree, and I love all that, and to me, it's actually fascinating. And if you want, we can talk about maybe starting a study. We can even do that if you want. Like, I love going down those. I love kind of digging that stuff up. If that is something that interests you as well,
Sure.
I would love to pick your mind about that stuff. And for those, listeners that are interested in going deeper in that, I think that would be a great idea that we can talk about doing in the future. But another one of the things that I, kind of want to, and that's a wonderful, wonderful that was a wonderful rabbit trail that we went off on, and my apologies for doing that, but I actually don't regret it because that was some good talks that we had right there. But I do want to jump subject a little bit, and with the discussion of the, I guess, the major crises and the major happening before Charlie was assassinated, and that was, in fact, his last video on TikTok and on social media was about Irina Zarutska. And of course, that was the young 23-year-old Ukrainian woman who, a refugee, that came from Ukraine and was brutally murdered on the train by that DeCarlos guy. So I, one of the things that Charlie said, and I saw this in a recent talk that he gave, and I mean, this just happened with Irina. This just happened. And so for him to really already talk about this, saying that we need to politicize this stuff, there, the left is saying, oh, don't politicize it. And that's horrible for you to politicize it. We have to politicize it because the whole reason that DeCarlos was even out after being arrested 14 times, a violent criminal, was because of politically appointed magistrates that have this DEI mindset, this woke mindset, this, and I want to say it this way, this black supremacist mindset that they're fighting this like invisible enemy out there that is the white supremacist. Like, they're not wanting to actually, none of them are licensed. They're not attorneys. They're not even attorneys. They were appointed. They are not qualified individuals to even be judges, yet they're being put in these positions to be able to let crazy people just walk out free. And so that I absolutely 1000% agree with Charlie and his assessment of that we have to politicize these things because that is what it boils down to, is what sort of laws, what sort of policies were, and what led to that. And it was the bad policies of woke-minded magistrates, people's representatives that were put into play by either DEI or appointed as such.
That's insane. I had any idea that they were not lawyers. So a lot of them.
None of them are lawyers.
Yeah, we absolutely have to make this political, and on two fronts. One, what Charlie said is right, simply because if you're going to make any action, you have to go through the political process to make those actions, because that has to be policy written up and legislated and then voted on and so forth. So that's the only way you can make change. And the second front would be what I would say, what Jesus Christ talked about: I will build my house on my ecclesia. That's the actual word in there. He said that, on this rock. That word was actually translated to ecclesia, and which was a known word of that time in the Roman era, was that the community space, the communal area, or the political space, for lack of a better term.
The governing space, in other words, yes.
In other words, be involved in the government and be involved in making change. Because one thing the founding fathers, I love the founding fathers, by the way, I have all these kind of things. This is Thomas Jefferson. No, who is this? This is Jefferson. I got Jefferson over here. I got my Roland over there. I got a few others. I'm looking at all my figurines over here, and they remind me of the foundation of this country. And so they understood that you had to have that basis of liberty that was given to you by God in order for us to make any kind of impacting change. And so, yeah, I 100% agree. And the fact that this happened with these unelected bureaucrats, which is essentially what they are, they're basically shilling for the Democrat Party, shilling for this DEI, for this woke agenda, which is a cultural Marxism area. I'm sure we can go into that. Is appalling. It's appalling, and that's something that would have all of them turning over in their graves.
Absolutely.
And that poor young lady. Absolutely. I mean, I'm sorry, I cut you off there. That poor young lady, Irina. I mean, that was the story, and that was. I mean, can you think of a better narrative to push forward? You have in a Ukrainian
Right.
refugee.
Right.
That's like that's one Ukrainian refugee. That's two black supremacists. That's three. Yeah, I mean that's a huge story. And then he's quoted as saying, "I got that white girl. I got that white girl."
Right.
I'm like,
Right.
come on, man. Seriously, seriously. That's where we are.
But it's not
There's no
political.
exactly.
It renders me incredulous. The absolute buffoonery that is the left. The absolute like just and that's how they are complete liars and they're bold-faced liars. And the sad thing about it is that I think a lot of them are so brainwashed that they actually believe these lies. They live these lies. And somebody there was actually many posts that I saw about this, and I've really kind of thought about this myself, and I want to echo that sentiment. Is that these happenings are really working to separate the wheat from the chaff. This is what's happening right now. Even those on the Democratic, a lot of people on the Democratic Party are saying, no, no more. I will never vote Democrat again. I'm coming to the right. I'm coming to the red. I might be a gay transgender. I do not believe in this. I have seen it multiple times on posts. I may be a, LGBTQ supporter, but I cannot celebrate the death of, this. I don't believe in this. And so it absolutely is separating the wheat from the chaff right now. And that's prophecy, that's biblical, and that is something that is going to happen in the end times as well. So we got to look at things like that too. But going back to Irina, it's you couldn't write a more
You couldn't.
just ironic. Are you kidding me? Like a Ukrainian refugee that gets murdered on a train by a black man who was let out
In the
by
South.
magistrates in the South, in blue cities
Hmm.
that were not even qualified to be judges.
Yep.
It's like, where is the camera? Where, like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
And she loved
And then
America.
and then they sit there and defend it. And it blows my mind. And this is the part where I get emotional and where I get passionate and where I kind of lose my couth at some point, is because are you freaking kidding me? I can't handle it. It's such an insult to our intelligence. It's such an insult to our humanity. Like, you sat there and threw Ukraine in our face for how many years? We gave up how many trillions of dollars to that dancing circus president because of this war that y'all started.
Hmm.
What the absolute, and I don't want to cuss, but are you kidding me? There's just no words, and this is what pushes me past the edge of speaking calmly. I can't even handle it. It just makes me so crazy inside, because it's just it's such an insult. It's such a gaslight for them to
Hmm.
continue to try to stay in their position of, oh, this is, for Whoopi and joyless Behart to sit there and say, we can't politicize this. This is wrong for you to politicize. He was crazy. He was a mentally ill person that just needed some help. Like, well, if that was the case, I don't care what you want to call it. A murderer is not a mentally well person. No murderer is. I don't care what sort of psychosis that they're actually diagnosed with. They're not mentally well. How can you call somebody who murders somebody else in cold blood? How can you call that mentally well? No murderer is mentally well. So what does that?
Correct.
That's, you know what I mean? Like, again, I'm rendered incredulous as to the idiocy that remains on the left, and the pure just pride that they have about themselves, and the stubbornness, the stiff-necked stubbornness that they have to sit there, and then they try to gaslight us and blame us for it. It's just I think that most people are waking up to that now, and they're just really they're saying, you know what, f you, we're not buying your BS anymore. We're done
Yep.
buying it. And I think that unfortunately it's taken happenings like Irina Zarutska, like Charlie Kirk, to really get some of these people to wake up. And that's the unfortunate thing about it. But it's also the silver lining in it. You know, speaking of Jefferson, you know, he was the one that famously quoted, "The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants." So I think that we're seeing that, and it is unfortunate that that's what it takes for freedom to remain. But I'll get off my soapbox. Go ahead and take
No,
it from
no,
here.
I think you're preaching to the choir there. I like that quote by Jefferson. I really like Jefferson, by the way. He's one of my favorites. But and let's talk about Irina. Just a little, talk about her a little bit. What gets me the most about her, and literally, I don't mind saying this. I mean, I actually was crying on this, and it wasn't necessarily the murder or the brutality of it, which is bad enough. It wasn't hardly any of that. It was the fact that she loved America and that she's going to be buried here in America. Her parents said, no, let her stay there. She loved this country. And that gets me more than anything. Here you have this woman who survived the war, comes over here to get murdered by a savage. And and there's a lot of subtext in that. You mentioned the big ones, refugee, Ukrainian, black militant, Muslim, whatever, not Muslim, black, what he could have been, but nationalist, whatever he was. Supremacist. Actually, yeah, that's a good word. But there's some subtext there too. She loved America. She was trying to work, here and try to make her a better life, and all these different things. And how she was, being a female, and she was a smaller size female. And so the importance of, let's say, having a Second Amendment. So there's a lot of subtext in here. And so, and for me, and then when it happened with Charlie, I was done. I was done. And to, I guess, talk about this gaslighting thing, which is something that we did early on at the Conservative Take. I brought on a person named Nicole Kaufman. She's a clinical therapist. She had I gave her own show on my channel, and one of her episodes dealt with gaslighting. And one of my favorite movies of all time is called Gaslight. It's with Ingrid Bergman and I can tell the guy's name. I think it's Laurence Olivier, I believe. Anyway, doesn't matter. But it was about, if I'll spoil it if I say too much about it. But watch the movie Gaslight. It came from that particular movie, and how it's a form of mental abuse where that's 1+1 is 2. No, it's not. It's 3. What? No, it's not. It's 3. And if everyone says that, enough of that is going to, maybe it is 3. You know what I mean? And so that is a form of mental abuse. And the whole point of it is to get you off the subject, because in the very beginning, to kind of bring it back full circle, you mentioned this earlier about it's about truth. Well, they don't want truth, as you mentioned rightfully. They don't have truth. So they'll do anything, get you off of it, call you crazy, gaslight you, censor you, ridicule you, do violence against you, cancel you,
Accuse
whatever
you.
it takes for them to get off of the subject. I don't care what it is. Just stop talking about it, because we cannot deal with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, going back to Irina again, there was a picture of her, and there's a lot of things that you always got to fact check, but I saw several posts about this, that she had the Black Lives Matter in her room, had a poster, Black Lives Matter poster in her room, which is one of those things, again, it just hammers in the irony. And I don't believe in coincidences. I really, really don't. And I think that everything is a sign. I think it's absolutely like it is a result, and proof is in the pudding, so to speak. And not that in any way, shape, or form that poor girl deserved that. She did not deserve that.
Well, she wanted to be
And
a good person. I mean, she
yeah,
she probably took it at face value. She
yeah.
probably
And I
understand
think,
the subtext of that
yeah,
of everything.
exactly, exactly, exactly. Which is, increases not only the irony of the situation, but just the tragedy of it overall. And God bless her soul. I hope that I hope that Charlie's there with her. I hope she's with Charlie, and 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 that I choose to believe that. I think that God has a I think that God has a plan for things like that happen. You know, Isaiah 45:7 says that He creates the good and the evil, the calamity in the world, and we don't understand that. We How can a loving God allow that and create it? Not only allow it, but create it. And yet He does, and He does for the kingdom. He does for the purpose. So, and I don't want to go too much into that because I know that that can be quite a divisive part of Scripture, and one that can be very very upsetting. So, but we do have to understand that this is all a part of His purpose. Got to have that bigger understanding, and I think that people should really take a look at the subsequent happenings of Charlie's assassination and just the waves, the amplified love and unity and support that TPUSA is getting, of course. The amount of people that I have heard online that are returning or coming to the church for the first time, that are coming to Jesus for the first time, people wanting to be baptized. And I love it. I think that all of us should. And another thing is too, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to talk bad about it. I've never been a fan of necessarily cancel culture. And at the same time, I'm like, why do we conservatives not do some of the same things that the left has tried to do? And then we see with all of these evil people talking or mocking his death, losing their jobs left and right. I applaud that in every way, shape, or form. I know some conservatives are like, oh, well, you got to be careful about that because freedom of speech and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, but you have freedom of speech, but you don't have freedom of consequence. And there's a big difference between that. Yeah, I should be able to say what I should want to say. I should be able to say, hey, yeah, I don't like you. I think you're a bad person, blah, blah, blah. And I don't like this group of bad people because I'm a racist, if I were. But I shouldn't be able to work with the public or work in a health setting where I take care of all sorts of different races of people, because then that's counterproductive. It's contrary. So, yeah, I'm for it. I hate to say it, but I'm for it. And I think the left really needs to recognize this. The right has been peaceful. We have pushed this narrative and this mindset of peace because we are a peace-seeking people. We don't want violence. We don't want that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, and Trump said it today, or I heard it on a post today of something he said where he was like, the far right doesn't exist yet, but don't poke the freaking bear. And that's what's been happening. The left has been poking the bear for decades. And we've just sat back and we said, please don't poke, please stop. Don't do this. Don't do this. Let's talk about it. And then they killed the one man who was best, who extended that olive branch better than anybody else. And now they have awakened a beast of unprecedented understanding. Like, the right has never been like this before, and we are done being peaceful. There's a saying that, a violent man, a peaceful man is a violent man who withholds that violence, who has the ability to withhold that, right?
Yeah, it's called
Because,
meekness.
yeah, because a man that doesn't have the ability to be violent is just weak. There's a quote. One of my favorite quotes is a song lyric, and it says, "It takes strength to be gentle and kind." And that's because it's natural for us to pop off and give in to our emotions and to our anger, but it takes strength to reel yourself in from that. And that's what we've been doing for a long time. We've been the stronger. We have the ability. We are that bear. And Trump was trying to tell people, you don't want it. You don't want this smoke from the right. He understands what we're capable of, and that there will be nothing left of the left. There will be nothing left. I'll just leave it at that. And it's not because we want to. We're not coming for the smoke. but we're tired of shutting up. We're tired of backing up. We're tired of being PC. We're tired of giving you your space and being tolerant. Now we're maintaining our boundaries. And if you come to our boundaries, Crowder said it best the other day, we are at a hair trigger right now. We're not coming after you, but come to our boundaries. We want that smoke. Bring it to us and you're going to find out. F around and find out is basically where the right's at. And I feel like that's a huge shared sentiment. I know there's a lot of people still out there trying to preach peace, and ultimately we want to seek peace at all times. But even Jesus himself said, "I came to be a sword." He flipped tables and he whooped asses in the synagogue because of people who were messing up. He said he came to be a sword. He came to divide. He came to war. And that's what we need to understand as Christians, that just because we want to be loving and we want to try to be kind, that's only to a certain extent. God never told David to pray for and unify with Goliath. He told him to slay him at the end of the day. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end this. Are there any last thoughts that you may have with that? I know you may not fully agree with a lot of those
No,
more
I
stronger
do.
statements.
I do. I was going to talk real quickly about cancel culture. That
Yeah,
just
go right ahead.
that cancel culture. It's different than going to a Trump rally and someone putting up your social security number and everything online because they don't agree with you going to. It's different than that than going to and ridiculing someone and mocking them about something in a public sphere. And you happen to be a teacher teaching kids, or you're a government worker or whatever. It's a different ball game when it comes to that. So I agree with you in principle, but we haven't really gone to the level that they've gone. The
Right.
visual image of Charlie Kirk's assassination still is ingrained in my mind. And to me, that's unlike anything we've ever seen. When assassinations have happened in the past, we've never had a 4K image of it, from multiple angles that can be played and be seen. And that kind of visceral type of deal has never been seen at this level in the history of the world because of technology. Brings me into Lincoln. When Lincoln was assassinated, people loved Lincoln after the Civil War. People were so happy that the war was over. He was killed a week later after that. And when that happened, the Democrat Party was basically literally destroyed. They could not get an election for another 30 to 40 to 50 years. Say it, albeit maybe Grover Cleveland. Outside of that, there was none. But so that's what I'm thinking that could happen out of Charlie Kirk, is that this could be the moment that we actually expound that, and that visceral image motivates me if I'm tired to still work a little bit more. And for those young people who are now wanting to start chapters or do whatever, I think that's going to play a much bigger role because of the type of media that was displayed at. You mentioned about Trump. Well, you didn't mention Trump. I'm mentioning Trump in terms of he's coming after the left politically and through his to the power of the executive branch. You watch. He and Kash Patel and Bondi and him and are going and they're going after these guys. They're going to cut their money, and they're not going to make any excuses on this. I'm telling you, their wrath is coming down on these guys financially. They're going to shut down all this money coming in from Soros and so forth. They're going to put in time to a RICO charge, hopefully, to dry it up. And then also, to your point, I agree with you as well from a practical everyday motion. You keep poking me, man. Hey, don't keep poking me. So with that, that's what I had that just a comment on what you said there before, but I really appreciate you having me on. It's been a really
Thank
good
you. Yes.
opportunity. And again, I feel really honored to be your first guest on your podcast.
Thank you so much. I couldn't have asked for a better guest. Like, this was just meant to be, especially with the communication that we had right before this. I think it was absolutely meant to be. And we definitely should do it again, probably lots of times. So if you're willing to do that, I would love to have you back, Kyle.
Oh, sure. And I'd love you having it on my channel as well.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime. Is there, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, has questions for you, how can they connect with you?
Sure. They can go to theconservativetake.com, or they can go to The Conservative Take on YouTube. There's two Conservative Takes. It's the one that looks like me. I'm the logo of the channel. So, and we're also on Rumble as well. And we're also on,
Okay.
Just those two would be good. From there, you can find us other places.
Amazing. Amazing. All right. Well, and as for me, you guys can find me. I have a ton of different social media. Rothy's Revolution on Instagram. I'm going to be on Rumble, Rothy's World, and Rothy's Revolution. We're going to have Rothy's Radio, and I'll put all the stuff in the comments and all of that. So thank you so much once again, Kyle, for joining me. We'll do this again. Thank you, audience, for joining me, for sticking with us. And till next time, God bless.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.